The Monday sun rose gently over Washington, D.C., spilling through the tall glass windows of Evelyn Parker's townhouse. Inside, the morning was alive. The hiss of eggs frying, the rhythm of heels against marble, the faint aroma of amber and jasmine, a test sample from Evelyn's perfume lab. She was a woman of elegance and precision, founder of Parker & Co., a luxury fragrance empire built from scratch after her husband's death. Everything about her life was order, except for what waited inside a lunchbox that morning. At the kitchen counter stood Grace Miller Parker, her daughter-in-law, hair tied back in a neat ponytail, phone pressed to her ear. She laughed softly while slicing fruit, the picture of grace and domestic warmth. 2 lunchboxes sat before her, one small for Evelyn, one larger for Andrew, Evelyn's only son, the pride of her life, and the managing director of a fast-growing investment firm. Evelyn watched from the doorway, sipping coffee, eyes tender. "You're always so thoughtful," she said. Grace turned with a smile that could light any room. "You both work too hard, Mom. Eating home-cooked meals is safer than takeout these days." Her tone was sweet, reassuring, and yet, in hindsight, those words would echo like a ghost. Later that afternoon, Evelyn sat in her office, reviewing scent profiles for Velvet Iris, her company's newest perfume. The air buzzed with the chatter of young employees and the scent of ambition. When lunchtime arrived, she reached for her purse and smiled, until she noticed something odd. Inside was Andrew's larger lunchbox, not hers. Evelyn chuckled, shaking her head. "That girl mixed them up again," she murmured, amused. She opened the container, ready to tease Grace later, but stopped. The rim of the lunchbox glittered faintly under the light. Tiny white crystals, like frost on glass. "How strange," Evelyn whispered. "Why would Grace put sugar on a savory dish?" Her assistant peered over her shoulder. "It looks like the edge of a margarita glass, ma'am." Laughter erupted across the room. Everyone laughed, except Dr. Daniel Brooks, her senior advisor, a calm man with silver hair and sharp eyes. Evelyn carried the lunchbox to his desk, still chuckling. "Daniel, look what Grace did. My daughter-in-law is so absent-minded. She sweetened Andrew's food by mistake." But Daniel didn't smile. He tilted the box under the fluorescent light, rubbed the rim with his finger, then froze. His face drained of color. "Evelyn," he said slowly, voice tightening, "who prepared this meal?" "My daughter-in-law, as always." "Why?" He met her eyes, the kind of look that cancels air in a room. "You need to take your son to the hospital. Now. Don't ask questions. Just go." The laughter in the office died instantly. Silence pressed against Evelyn's ears. For a heartbeat, she couldn't move. "Daniel, you're scaring me." He stood abruptly, gripping her arm. "If I'm right, those crystals aren't sugar. They're arsenic residue. If Andrew eats this, he won't survive another week." Evelyn's breath caught. Her pulse roared like sirens in her veins. Moments later, she was in her car, the lunchbox sealed in a plastic bag on her lap. "Drive, Jones. To the University of Maryland Medical Center. Fast." Outside, the city blurred. Cabs, traffic lights, pedestrians, all dissolving into noise. Evelyn clutched the bag as if it were a live bomb. At the hospital, doctors rushed the sample into the lab. The air smelled of antiseptic and fear. Evelyn waited, staring at the wall clock, every tick hammering her heart. When Dr. Ethan Collins emerged, his expression said everything before his mouth did. "Mrs. Parker, we found arsenic in the food. A lethal dose if consumed regularly. Whoever's been eating this has been poisoned, slowly." Evelyn's knees weakened. Images of Andrew flashed. His tired eyes, pale face, the nights he complained of nausea. "It's just work stress, Mom." No, it wasn't stress. It was murder in slow motion. She whispered, voice cracking, "Who would do this?" But the answer was already forming. A shadow with a perfect smile and gentle hands. Driving home, Evelyn didn't go straight to her house. She stopped by her lawyer's office. Reviewing her will, her heart turned to ice. If Andrew died before her, Grace would inherit everything. That night, as Evelyn returned home, Grace sat on the porch, scrolling through her phone, smiling warmly. "Mom, I booked us a spa weekend. You need to relax." Evelyn forced a smile. "Maybe next time, dear." She walked past her, trembling hands hidden in her coat pockets, her mind echoing Daniel's words. "If I'm right, your son won't survive another week." Inside, the perfume of home, coffee, lavender, love, now smelled faintly of fear. And somewhere in that quiet house, a clock began to tick toward the moment when truth would finally explode. The next morning, the world looked unchanged. Sunlight over DC, a quiet kitchen, the hum of the city beyond. But inside Evelyn Parker, everything had shifted. Her trust had cracked, leaving behind a silence that hummed louder than words. She met Andrew outside his office. He looked exhausted, his skin pale beneath the autumn light. "You said it was urgent," he murmured, sliding into her car. Evelyn's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Son, you're being poisoned." He laughed nervously until she showed him the report. The laughter died in his throat. "Grace?" he whispered, disbelief breaking his voice. Evelyn nodded. "We can't confront her, not yet." By afternoon, they were seated across from Detective Nolan Carter, a calm, broad-shouldered man whose gray eyes carried the fatigue of too many ugly truths. "You want justice," he said. "Then we'll play this smart. She wants your fortune? Then we'll make her think it's slipping away." Evelyn understood immediately. We bait her with greed. That evening, she staged her first move. In the living room, she spoke loudly into the phone, making sure Grace, arranging flowers nearby, could hear every word. "Yes, Robert," she said to her lawyer, Mr. Hayes. "I've decided. Next month, I'm rewriting my will. At least 80% of my estate will go to charity, a foundation for abused women." Grace froze mid-motion. A single petal dropped to the floor. Her lips parted, then closed again. Evelyn saw it, that flicker of panic, before Grace turned with a polite smile. "That's wonderful, Mom. You have such a good heart." Later that night, during dinner, Evelyn repeated the same line, her tone casual. "The Parker brand should stand for compassion, not wealth." Andrew nodded in agreement. "It's what Dad would have wanted." Across the table, Grace smiled thinly, but her manicured hand trembled slightly as she lifted her wineglass. Beneath the soft clink of cutlery, tension pulsed like an unspoken storm. Moments later, Grace excused herself. Evelyn quietly followed her voice to the garden. A whisper, sharp and urgent, sliced the air. "No, I can't wait another month. We have to act now." The older woman stepped closer, branches casting lines of shadow across her face. Grace turned, startled. "Oh, Mom, my spa appointment got moved to tomorrow morning. Just making arrangements." Evelyn smiled faintly. "Of course, dear. Don't stay up too late." The next day, Detective Carter installed a hidden camera in the kitchen, tucked between spice jars. Evelyn and Andrew watched from a small surveillance room at the precinct, their faces pale under the glow of the monitor. There she was, Grace, wearing an apron, hair tied neatly. She opened a small glass bottle, tilting it carefully over a pot of simmering soup. White powder cascaded like snow into the broth. She stirred slowly, expression blank, mechanical. Evelyn's nails dug into the wooden table. "That's my son's dinner." Carter placed a hand on her shoulder. "We've got her." That night at home, Andrew took a spoonful, pretending to taste it before setting it down. Seconds later, he groaned softly, clutching his head. Grace rushed to him, her performance perfect. Panic, devotion, fear. "Honey, you've been overworking. I'll get water." But Evelyn saw it, the faint spark of satisfaction behind her eyes. When Grace left the room, police collected the samples. The next morning, Carter called. "We tested it. Double the arsenic this time. She's panicking. She'll accelerate her plan. Evelyn closed her eyes. Then it's time we finish this. From that moment, the house turned into a chessboard. Evelyn noticed every glance, every glass of juice Grace handed to Andrew first. Once, Evelyn asked for that same orange juice. Grace hesitated, her hand trembling, then forced a smile. "Of course, Mom." Evelyn accepted it, then set it down. "You know what? I think I'll have water instead." The air between them thickened. Grace's smile cracked just a little. Another evening, Evelyn deliberately interrupted. "I'll eat the soup tonight. You can make something light for Andrew." Grace froze, then nodded slowly. "Sure, Mom." Every refusal was another thread in the trap, and Grace, unaware, was walking right into it. One night, Evelyn passed by her daughter-in-law's door and heard her whispering again, voice trembling. "Just a few more days, and it'll all be mine." Evelyn pressed her phone against the door, recording every word. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it would echo through the hallway. The message was sent to Carter with a single line. "We're almost there." The detective's reply came minutes later. Then we moved to phase 2. The fake death. Evelyn looked out at the sleepless D.C. skyline, her reflection a ghost in the glass. Her voice, barely a breath, whispered, "Tomorrow, she'll meet the truth she buried in every meal." And in the darkness of that quiet house, the real trap had finally been set. The following night unfolded like a carefully rehearsed play. Every movement, every breath, every glance had been scripted, except for the fear that neither Evelyn nor Andrew Parker could suppress. It was time for the final act. Dinner was quiet, too quiet. The air felt heavy, charged with invisible electricity. Grace moved through the kitchen like a dancer in slow motion, ladling soup into delicate porcelain bowls. "Eat, my love," she said softly, placing one before Andrew. Her tone was tender, but her eyes flickered with a hidden urgency. Evelyn watched from across the table, hands folded, pulse thundering in her ears. Beneath the calm exterior, she knew this was the moment the world would break, one way or another. Andrew lifted the spoon, hesitated, then forced a smile. "Smells wonderful, Grace." He took a small sip, just enough for the illusion. Then he winced, fingers gripping his stomach. His body slumped forward, the spoon clattering against the table. "Andrew!" Evelyn cried, her voice trembling, real panic bleeding into her acting. Grace shot up from her chair, rushing to his side. "Oh my God, Andrew! Wake up, please!" She held his face, shaking him, but Evelyn saw it, that fleeting glimmer in her daughter-in-law's eyes. Not despair, relief. Evelyn fumbled for her phone. "Call 911, she gasped. Within minutes, red and blue lights flashed outside. Paramedics, undercover officers, stormed in, checking Andrew's pulse, pretending to attempt resuscitation. One turned to Evelyn. "He's in cardiac arrest. We need to move." Grace's voice cracked. "I'm coming with him." "I'm sorry, ma'am," the officer said firmly. "Only one person can ride along." Evelyn turned to Grace, eyes wet. "Stay here, dear. I'll go with him. I'll call you the moment I know anything." Grace nodded, tears glistening, and Evelyn felt a shiver crawl up her spine. Her daughter-in-law's grief looked perfect, too perfect. Inside the ambulance, Evelyn clutched Andrew's limp hand. His eyelids fluttered open for a brief second. "Mom," he whispered faintly, "let's end this." She squeezed his fingers. "We will." At the University of Maryland Medical Center, a private room had been prepared. Hidden cameras filled every corner. Dr. Laura Wilson, a trusted ally, stood by the monitors, ensuring every beat of the plan was flawless. Machines beeped in synchronized rhythm as they displayed a flat line on the heart monitor. Andrew lay pale beneath a white sheet, makeup turning his skin deathly gray. Evelyn sat by the bed, hands trembling in her lap. When she finally sent the text, her heart nearly stopped. Grace, come to the hospital. Andrew didn't make it. 40 minutes later, footsteps thundered down the corridor. The door burst open and Grace stumbled inside, disheveled, mascara smeared, one heel broken. She ran straight into Evelyn's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. No, it can't be. He was fine this morning. Evelyn held her stiffly. He's inside, darling. Say goodbye. Grace approached the bed, her tears glistening under fluorescent light. She touched Andrew's cold hand, her shoulders shaking. Then, in a whisper barely audible, but clear to the hidden microphones, she exhaled. Finally, it's over. Evelyn's breath caught. There it was. The confession. The truth, whispered like venom. And then, without warning, Andrew's eyes opened. Grace screamed, stumbling backward. No, you're dead. I saw. Andrew sat up slowly, his face blank, voice colder than steel. Careful, Grace. You almost got away with it. The room erupted. Detective Carter stepped in, flanked by officers. Grace Miller Parker, he said, his tone grave. You're under arrest for attempted murder. Grace's face drained of color. No, it's not true. It was just seasoning. Carter lifted a folder. We have the lab results, the video of you adding arsenic, and the recording of what you just said. Grace's knees buckled. I didn't mean to. She was going to donate everything. I had no choice. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears, not of pity, but exhaustion. You always had a choice, Grace. You just chose greed. Officers moved in, reading her rights as she sobbed, mascara streaking down her cheeks. The once perfect image of a devoted wife shattered under fluorescent light. Andrew stood beside his mother, shaking slightly. I loved her, he said hoarsely. Evelyn turned to him, cupping his face. Love can't survive poison, son. It only survives truth. As Grace was led away, the hallway fell silent except for the distant echo of her heels on tile, a sound like the fading heartbeat of everything false. Evelyn leaned against the wall, tears spilling freely now. The nightmare was over. The trap had sprung. In that cold hospital corridor, beneath the sterile lights, mother and son stood together, survivors of deceit, bound by a truth too terrible to forget. For the first time in weeks, Evelyn exhaled fully. The poison was gone, but the scars would never fade. Morning broke over Washington, D.C., pale and cold. The sky hung low over the Metropolitan Police Headquarters, a concrete fortress filled with echoes of stories people wished they could forget. Inside, Evelyn Parker and her son Andrew sat in the witness room, their faces drawn, drained, but alive. They had survived the storm, but the air still smelled faintly of it. Beyond the glass partition, Grace Miller Parker sat handcuffed at a metal table. Her once perfect hair was tangled, her silk blouse wrinkled, mascara smudged beneath her swollen eyes. She looked smaller now. The image of luxury peeled away, leaving behind something raw and hollow. The public defender beside her whispered something, but Grace wasn't listening. Her gaze was fixed on the table, eyes glassy. Detective Carter entered, file in hand, voice calm but cutting. Mrs. Miller Parker, we can do this the hard way or the honest way. Tell me why. Grace lifted her head slowly. Why? She repeated, a bitter laugh escaping her. Because I was tired of watching them live the life I could never have. Her voice cracked. I grew up with nothing, detective. Nothing. And when I married Andrew, I thought I'd finally escaped that world. She swallowed, trembling. But then she glanced toward the glass, knowing Evelyn was behind it. She decided to give everything away, to strangers, while I was supposed to smile and applaud. Her words hung in the air like poison. Carter leaned forward. So you poisoned your husband? Grace's lips quivered. I didn't mean to kill him right away. I read online that arsenic takes time. Small doses wouldn't be noticed. I just wanted him weak, tired, so when he died, it would look natural. Her breathing grew uneven, and after that, it'd be easy. I'd take care of Evelyn, make sure she had everything she needed until she conveniently passed too, Carter finished, his tone dark. Through the glass, Andrew's fists clenched. His mother placed a steadying hand over his. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't look away. Grace's voice broke completely now. I told myself it was survival, that I deserved what they had. I didn't realize I'd turned into the very thing I hated. For a moment, silence filled the room. Thick, suffocating silence. Then Carter closed his notebook. "We have your statement. You'll be charged with attempted murder." As the officers led Grace out, she looked toward the glass. Her eyes met Evelyn's through the reflection, desperate, pleading. But Evelyn didn't move. She simply whispered, "You had everything you needed, Grace. You just wanted more." The door slammed shut, and the echo carried like a final heartbeat. 2 weeks later, news spread across the city. Socialite arrested for poison plot against husband and mother-in-law. Reporters called it the Parker scandal. Andrew's company issued a statement. Evelyn's perfume empire saw its stocks dip, then surge again, when she announced something unexpected: the creation of the Parker Foundation, dedicated to helping women escape toxic homes and financial manipulation. At the press conference, Evelyn stood behind the podium, calm, luminous under the lights. Cameras flashed like lightning. "I built a company on the idea that fragrance captures memory," she said. "But not all memories are sweet. Some burn. This foundation is for those who've been burned and want to breathe again." The applause was soft but genuine. In the front row, Andrew watched with quiet pride, his mother's strength shining through her sorrow. That evening, the two of them sat on the balcony of their townhouse. The city shimmered below, car lights threading through the streets like fireflies. Andrew turned to her. "Do you ever regret it? Loving someone who hurt us?" Evelyn smiled faintly. "Love isn't a mistake, son. It's trusting the wrong person that hurts. But if we stop trusting altogether, we stop living." He nodded slowly. "You've forgiven her." Her gaze drifted toward the horizon. "No," she said softly, "but I've forgiven myself for not seeing sooner." The wind carried the scent of lavender and rain, the smell of healing. Inside, a single perfume bottle sat uncorked on the table, labeled Redemption. Evelyn had mixed it herself: bitter orange, musk, a trace of rose, beauty born from something broken. Andrew stood and wrapped his arms around her shoulders. "Because of you, I'm still here." She looked at him with tears that glimmered like glass. "Because of truth," she whispered, "not because of me." Below them, the city pulsed with life. Somewhere in a cell, Grace wept into her hands, haunted by the taste of the poison she had created. A poison that had destroyed everything she'd ever wanted. Evelyn leaned back, closing her eyes as the night settled in. "Every fragrance fades," she murmured. "But some truths, they linger." The camera would fade out there. Mother and son framed by the golden dusk, the faint whisper of wind through the city, while Evelyn's final words echoed in the quiet. "Greed poisons the soul faster than arsenic, but love, real love, cleanses what even death cannot."